is a 7 News Election 2025 Beyond the Podium special presentation.
And thank you for joining us for this special report. I'm Scott Thuman. The race for Virginia's next governor is set. Republican Lieutenant Governor Winsome Earle-Sears and former Democratic Congresswoman Abigail Spanberger have secured their party's nominations, setting up a historic contest in November. And either way, it looks like Virginia voters will choose the first woman to lead the Commonwealth. But beyond those headlines, the Republican ticket is also drawing attention for its diversity and for how it might reshape traditional voting coalitions.
I'm Winsome Earle-Sears. I'm not a typical politician, and I never will be.
Earle-Sears has already broken barriers as the first black woman elected to statewide office in Virginia. She is a Marine Corps veteran and first-generation American. Her parents migrated to the U.S. from Jamaica when she was just 6 years old. Running alongside her for lieutenant governor on the Republican ticket is John Reid, son of a former Virginia delegate. He left his role as host of a conservative Virginia radio talk show before hitting the campaign trail, and if elected, he'll be the first openly gay man to hold public office in the Commonwealth.
I'm a conservative Trump supporter, and I'm gay, and everybody knows it because I've told you in person and in the media for decades.
Together, Earle-Sears and Reid form one of the most diverse Republican tickets ever to compete in a statewide race. But how will their identities intersect with GOP policies on immigration, LGBTQ+ rights, and other social issues? Will it help or hurt their campaigns? And how does President Donald Trump's waning popularity in the Commonwealth impact their chances in the general election this November? Joining me now to discuss this is Washington Bureau Chief for Sinclair, our parent company, Steve Chaggaris. Also with us is Prince William County Supervisor Yesli Vega, the first Latina elected to the Prince William Board of Supervisors. And we have Dr. Wes Bellamy, former vice mayor and council member of the city of Charlottesville. He now runs the city's Redevelopment and Housing Authority and chairs the political science department at Virginia State University. Thank you all for being here tonight. Let's first go ahead and address the political elephant in the room here. We haven't seen Lieutenant Governor Winsome Earle-Sears and John Reid, who wants to replace her, on the same stage, same time. Is that strategy, or is she trying to distance herself from the openly gay nominee that had a pretty messy launch?
Well, look, I certainly don't want to speak for our Lieutenant Governor, but what I can say is that she's laser focused on traveling across the Commonwealth of Virginia to ensure that she is speaking to voters, not just speaking to them, but hearing. She is laser focused on listening to what their wishes are for the next 4 years for the Commonwealth. And so I think that sure enough, we're going to see the entire ticket together. But right now, I believe that we're trying to figure out what the Democrat ticket is going to look like. But certainly the Lieutenant Governor is focused on hearing from the voters and talking about the issues that she's running on.
Steve?
I mean, look, this is the Lieutenant Governor. It's probably one of the least high-profile jobs in Virginia, and now she's running for the top spot. She has to make a name for herself. I think she's unknown to a lot of people. All people see in her right now is that she worked with Glenn Youngkin, and she's going to make a name for herself. It's still early in the process. It's June. We've got several months before the election, so you would think that Earle-Sears and her advisors are saying, you get out there and tell people who you are. And if you look at her ads that she's put out, it's all been defining herself. It's not about defining the ticket at this point, it's defining herself to really reintroduce herself to Virginia voters. Yeah,
making sure that that brand is out there. Dr. Bellamy, your thoughts on that?
I don't necessarily see it the exact same way. I think that when you look at in years prior, there's always been a ticket. I mean, there's not a primary right now. It's been pretty clear who the nominees and who the individuals are who will be represented. Why isn't there a united front? I think in some regard, that's rather telling. I agree from the perspective that Lieutenant Governor Winsome Sears has to make a name for herself. However, I do think that, as you see with most parties, when the individuals are all together, they all go and campaign together. There's a long runway in this regard, and I think in some ways, again, it's rather telling that there is some separation. Individuals are doing their own thing.
Yeah, and we'll see if any of this kind of seen as particularly messy rollout, as I mentioned, with Mr. Reid, if that was going to be a problem for him or not. We know that Glenn Youngkin at one point had said he should step down. So there's a lot to sort out there, but there is still a lot of time too. Does the diversity of this Republican ticket, do you think, Dr. Bellamy, do you think that appeals or alienates traditional GOP voters in Virginia?
Well, I think it does two things. One, from a position of what my personal opinion is and my personal hope is that we can get to a point in which we don't necessarily see people, or we consistently have to say this is the first Black this or the first Latina that we can get to a point in which this is the norm. This won't be the historical event in which, because we have two women running for governor, like we can get to a point in which this is the norm. I think in that regard is good for politics, for Virginia politics specifically as a whole. I do think personally that the optics of having Lieutenant Governor Winsome Sears and the diversity in which she brings to the ticket is good for the GOP. I think that it speaks to the fact in which I think they want to move to a position in which they're saying that they're more inclusive and open to a wide variety of different individuals. And it's also getting to a point in which the GOP is stating that they're simply about the issues and not necessarily identity politics. So in that regard, I do think it's good for them.
Yeah, diversity is always going to be a mention, but as he pointed out, eventually maybe you get beyond that, but we're still there right now. You face some of that yourself. What do you think of how that's going to play into this race?
We continue to talk about it because the left has made it such a focal point about their entire platform. You know, they talk about representation mattering. I ran in 2022. I was a Republican nominee against Abigail Spanberger in the 7th Congressional District. Unfortunately, you don't get the same treatment on the right as, you know, a Hispanic woman who's vying for a historic position in the Commonwealth of Virginia. But be that as it may.
Because you believe it's more expected on the left, or?
Well, no, because they try to demonize you because you are a threat to their entire platform and the narrative that they've been pushing. And I think that in many ways, the Lieutenant Governor is going to face a lot of those challenges, but she is a Marine, she is a fighter, and I know that she will never back down from a fight. But I do agree with the comments that were just stated, that I do hope that we get to a point where we are judging these candidates for what they bring to the table, for their ability to deliver, and not just to provide lip service. And so I'm really excited to see this campaign season unfold and all that the Lieutenant Governor is going to do on the campaign trail.
Steve, you know, there's a push among some Republicans to adopt a more inclusive stance on gay rights. But the question is, has the broader focus on transgender issues kind of shifted that conversation? And then could that actually hurt the GOP's statewide ticket?
It's hard to say. I think the transgender issue, it depends what slice you're looking at. If you're looking at from student athletes or athletes, especially transgender women participating against women in high school and college, that's a position that nationwide, I mean, you look at every poll, and a vast majority of the Americans disagree with the Democratic, a lot of Democrats on that issue. So that could help Republicans. In terms of the larger issues in terms of gay rights, and I just don't know that Virginians are going to be focused on those types of issues in a gubernatorial race. I think, you know, let's look back at the 2021 race and what were the issues that propelled Glenn Youngkin, right? We were coming out of COVID. Virginians were upset about how schools were handling COVID.
They wanted parents' rights.
Parents' rights. You had the CRT issue. You had lockdowns. And then you also had the economy. I mean, I look back and inflation had spiked throughout 2021 for, you say whatever reason, but it was spiking in 2021. And so those were the issues that drove people to the polls that year. 2025, what are going to be the issues this year? It's June, we don't know, but Abigail Spanberger is banking on the economy and jobs, right? She's looking at DOGE cuts and saying people in Virginia are going to be really upset about DOGE cuts. I'm not sure these other slices, these smaller issues, are going to drive a lot of folks to make their decisions about what happens in November.
Yesli, I'm curious. Earle-Sears told 7 News recently that she's not into identity politics. She didn't want that to be an overarching theme in any sort of way. But can she and Reid kind of get around that? What's the help or harm in leaning into their unique qualities?
Well, look, they both have unique strengths that they bring to this ticket, but I think you hit the nail on the head. You're spot on in regards to the comments that you just made. folks are still feeling the pinch in their pocketbooks. Parents are still feeling like their voices are not being heard in the classrooms. And we have candidates that are running, making promises. And I believe that the center focus of this race is going to be on who can deliver, on who can actually fix the issues that the Commonwealth of Virginia is facing. I think that the Lieutenant Governor is in the best position to talk about these issues because she has been the Lieutenant Governor. You have Governor Glenn Youngkin, who has brought common sense to the Commonwealth and has delivered on all of his promises. And I think that that gives her the upper hand because she has a record that she can be proud of. I don't think that her opponent can say the same thing.
Real quick, Steve, and then I got to get to Dr. Bellamy.
Yeah, I just want to say, look at the ads that the candidates have put out so far, and there's not much to look at, but neither of them are really leaning into the identity issue. I mean, you have Earle-Sears. She does say that she's a child or she's an immigrant, but other than that, it's really talking about issues. And when they talk about their biographies, they're talking about what else they've done, their military experience, their law enforcement experience, whatever.
Dr. Bellamy.
Well, I think in some regards that it's a misstep. I don't think you can understate the fact that it's a historical, monumental thing that's about to take place in the Commonwealth of Virginia. We're going to have the first female, the first woman to ever serve as governor in our state's history. Like, I understand that individuals want to talk about the issues, which I think are great, but I have 4 daughters, and I think just, again, personally for me, no matter who wins, I think it's going to be an opportunity for me to say to my daughters, like, this is something that you can look to aspire to. These women have ascended. One of these individuals have ascended to the highest office in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And I think that's something to be proud of. I don't think that's necessarily something in which we can move away from or we should not acknowledge in that regard. Now, when it comes to policies, one individual is running on kind of some of the things in which they've seen the current administration do with Governor Youngkin, and I think the jury is, in some ways, is out on that. I mean, there's a lot of campaign promises that may have been made, but also have been failed. And then when you look at Abigail Spanberger, there's individuals who question whether or not she's been able to not only bring some of the resources in which she's described to the Commonwealth of Virginia, but truly what will be her platform for how things transpire in her seat if she is elected to governor. So the jury's still out on both of them, in my personal opinion. But as many have alluded to, it's still very early. It's only June. But things over this summer will turn up. And when we get into the fall, it's going to be all wheels and all hands on deck.
It certainly will. And I'll be very curious to see what the women voter turnout will be, how much it may be affected by the fact that you have 2 women top of the ticket. We've got a lot more to talk about. We're going to take a very short commercial break here. And then on the other side, we're talking about the Trump appeal or Trump turnoff. Can the president bring this one home for the Republicans or be an insurmountable roadblock? We're back in just 60 seconds.
This is a 7 News Election 2025 Beyond the Podium special presentation.
Thank you for staying with us for this special Virginia Election 2025 report. We've been discussing the statewide elections that will make history this year. Virginia is poised to elect their first woman governor ever, but Republicans have an uphill battle. A recent poll released by Roanoke College showed former U.S. Representative Abigail Spanberger has a 17-point lead over Lieutenant Governor Winsome Earle-Sears. Analysts say Spanberger's lead with independent voters and favorability contribute to her edge there. And recently, at a Winsome Earle-Sears event, RNC Chair Mike Whatley also announced a push to connect with minority groups that the party hasn't traditionally targeted to help get them across the finish line.
We're going to go talk to the black community. We're going to talk to the Hispanic community, the Asian American community. That means we're going to talk to women. That means that we're going to talk to the youth vote. And we saw that President Trump was fearless in terms of going into every single one of those communities and delivering his message.
While President Trump made inroads with those groups, he lost Virginia to Vice President Kamala Harris by more than 5.5 points. And back with me now to discuss Trump's impact on this election is Washington Bureau Chief for Sinclair, our parent company. That's Steve Chaggaris. And also with us is Prince William County Supervisor Yesli Vega, the first Latina elected to the Prince William Board of Supervisors. And we have Dr. Wes Bellamy, former vice mayor and council member of the city of Charlottesville. He now runs the city's Redevelopment and Housing Authority, and he chairs the Political Science Department at Virginia State University. I want to get back to one question real fast on our last topic, and then we're going to move on here. Very quickly, if you don't mind, we talked about the fact that you have 2 women top of the tickets. What does that mean for voter turnout among women? Does it move the needle at all?
I'm not going to make that prediction now. I think it's way too early. I think the parties are going to be more interested in making sure that they get their bases out. I mean, right now you're seeing more Democratic enthusiasm than Republican enthusiasm for whatever reason. So Republicans, I think, will be laser focused on that. But you did hear Michael Whatley in that clip that you played, and they're ripping from the Trump playbook. They're going to just try to peel off some more voters that don't normally vote Republican, whether it's black voters, Latino voters, women. And so they're definitely going to go after them. But whether, it's just too early to say whether there'll be an uptick in women voters because there are 2 women at the top of the ticket.
Yesli?
I think it's an exciting time for the Commonwealth of Virginia. I do agree that it's going to be historic, regardless of who wins. And as a woman myself, I'm excited to see that we have 2 women running here in the Commonwealth. And so it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out. Again, it's still really early into the race, but I think that as things pick up, we're going to see a lot more enthusiasm, not just on the Republican side, but also on the Democrat side.
Doctor, should we expect more women to show up at the polls as a result?
I think on the Democratic side you will. I just don't think there's been a consistent effort on the Republican side to court those kind of voters, and I think it feels a little cheesy, if I'm being honest, about now saying you're going to go and try to talk to more women voters and Latino voters and black voters. Like, why haven't you been talking to these individuals all before? I think there's been several policies that have been disadvantageous for women that have come from the right, and I think that will be problematic throughout this campaign.
All right, a lot of the playbook is nothing new. As you pointed out, we heard Michael Whatley talk about going after all these different groups and trying to peel away, to use your term, or just kind of chip some more. You get a couple % from each category, suddenly you're on a roll. However, how realistic is that? Because whether it's Winsome Earle-Sears or it's John Reid or it's Jason Miyares, and they're trying to expand their group, is it a realistic strategy, or is it just what we all say these days, that we're leaving no stone unturned and no group is ever going to be ignored?
I think it's I was going to say, I think it's difficult in Virginia because the fundamentals just aren't really great for the Republican Party. If you look historically, I was talking to you before the show, the last time Republicans won the governorship 2 in a row was 1997. And so that in and of itself is an issue. But you know, the state is blue. It's a blue state. It's turned blue, more
People
blue.
love to say purple, though.
Well, it's turned more blue over the years. And so I think fundamentally, Earle-Sears is starting from a different place than Spanberger. You look at where Glenn Youngkin was successful. He was able to improve on Trump's turnout in 2020. Youngkin did better than Trump in a lot of places like Loudoun County, Fairfax County, Prince William. And so, you know, if Earle-Sears can mimic that, then she might have a chance. But, you know, you've got to overperform as a Republican in order to win. And think about it, Youngkin only won by 2 points in 2020.
Right, and I think people do forget that.
Yeah.
Doctor, is this just political pillow talk to say we're going to make sure everyone feels included here and everyone's vote is going to be with us because now we care even more?
I mean, to be candid, it's one of the most ridiculous things I've ever heard in my life. For an individual who's leading a party to now come out and say that we're going to go and try and court all of these groups of people, in my personal opinion, openly admitting that they haven't been talking to these individuals for generations, and now because there's a gubernatorial election, you're going to somehow go and do so, and then you're going to be able to, you see these voters as people who you can just siphon off and get a percentage point or 2 because you think this is what the individual who's currently in the White House was able to do. You think that playbook is going to work now. I just find it ridiculous, if I'm just being candid. I don't understand why you would take that approach.
Yesli, what do you think?
Well, I think it goes both ways. You know, it would be hypocritical of any of us to sit here and to say that the Democrat Party has always championed the Latino vote or the black vote. It wasn't until they identified that they needed to put people in these pockets or groups, however you want to call it, that they became interested in going out and talking to those people. I do want to add that I was the chairwoman of the Latinos for Youngkin Coalition when Governor Youngkin was running, and we made great gains with the Latino voter here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Now let's talk about the data. The president made inroads with every voter across the board that you can think of. That is a testament to what the Republican Party is speaking when it comes to the issues and what we are offering people in regards to what it really means to govern and what will happen if a Republican gets in the seat.
Will he be able to maintain, well, I say he as in Trump, but let's broaden that out. Will Republicans be able to maintain what he brought in that overall movement, not just here, but also you've got an election in New Jersey we're keeping a very close eye on. But this is a different time now with President Trump. I mean, this roller coaster continues to go up and down. Are voters, let's just say, for example, whether it be in Prince William County or down in Richmond, wherever, are they saying, yeah, you know what, I feel like they've widened the berth, where we feel more included now. Trump was onto something. How long can you ride that ride for?
You know, the conversations that I have, not just with my relatives, but with my friends, it's not so much about being included or feeling like they're included, but it's more so delivering on policy and improving their quality of life. There was chaos across the nation, whether it was law and order, the border, and folks, when they go to the ballot box, they think about these quality of life issues and how it's impacting their lives on a daily basis. And so when I talk to my friends, when I talk to my loved ones, those are the conversations that we have, and in many ways, people feel that, you know, what they voted for is what they're seeing, and they're seeing results. Again, it's still kind of early into this administration, so we'll see how things continue to unfold. But so far, the feedback that I'm getting is still very positive.
I think one of the challenges for Earle-Sears and Republicans in general is they're the incumbents now. Glenn Youngkin, Republican, is current governor, and Earle-Sears is the incumbent lieutenant governor. So it's going to be a referendum on that ticket. Donald Trump is the president of the United States, so it may be a little bit of a referendum on Donald Trump's presidency so far. That's always difficult in this environment. It's been a very anti-incumbent environment. I think one of the things that hurt McAuliffe in 2021 was the fact that he was seen as a de facto incumbent, even though he wasn't sitting governor. He had previously been governor, and there was a Democrat in office. And so I think overcoming that and trying to prove to voters that as the incumbent party now, as the Republicans who lead the state and lead the country, that you are in tune with the voters. That's going to, right now, it'll be interesting to see if the policies that Donald Trump has implemented are going to be approved by Virginia voters in the governor's race.
This is not a presidential cycle, so Trump is not on this ticket, but is he still front and center in people's minds when they go into that voting booth right now, Doctor?
Trump is definitely seen as the leader of the Republican Party. I really respect my dear sister who's on the panel, but I don't know. I mean, when I firmly believe in black and brown coalitions. I got a lot of Latinos and Latinas that I really get along with. I don't really know many Latinos and Latinas who are saying this is what I voted for. Like literally every single day, we are seeing massive raids of people being arrested, detained, shipped off by ICE, many of which who we've seen, you see the reports literally come out every single day. Persons that say, hey, I voted for Trump. I've never committed any crimes. I don't have any history of crimes in this nation. I'm not one of the individuals who should be rounded up, and they're doing so. I don't understand how when you see people like Elon Musk and Trump fighting on X or Truth Social like we see today, I don't understand how we see the prices of eggs and milk not come down, how anyone can say that this administration is delivering on what they said they were going to do, or maybe you see that they are. Maybe it's me, maybe my eyes are...
I got to introduce them to my friends and to my loved ones so they can have that conversation.
I mean, are people going into the booth and are they voting for Trump instead of Winsome, Earle-Sears, or for Spanberger? Are they saying, this is who I want to decide? It's whether or not I believe that Trump is the right choice.
Well, that's something that Abigail Spanberger is going to try to do, right? She's going to try to define Winsome Sears as a Donald Trump light. And so she's going to try to tie Sears directly to Trump on every issue. Now, whether she's successful in doing that, or whether she's successful in saying all these things that Donald Trump is doing, this is all Winsome Sears'
We've seen that
fault.
work elsewhere, haven't we?
Sure,
I mean, yeah,
sure, and it may work in Virginia, like I said, because the fundamentals are it is a majority Democratic state, so it may be a little bit easier. But she has to be successful in doing that, and if Sears is able to parry that a bit and separate herself, I mean, it'll be interesting to see how many times Donald Trump comes to Virginia to campaign or to fundraise for Winsome Sears. We don't know that yet. If he stays away, That's maybe one thing. I mean, remember Youngkin kept his distance.
Yeah,
Youngkin picked a couple of
delicate dance between them.
Picked a couple of issues, but he kept his distance generally from Donald Trump in 2021, and a lot of people say that helped him. We'll see how Sears handles this.
I would also suggest that the other side might do the same thing, trying to tie Abigail Spanberger to Joe Biden and her voting record matching how she sided with President Biden when he was in office. And so I think, again, it's going to be interesting. Both sides are going to try to do the same thing. And ultimately, the voters are going to have to decide who is the most qualified person to lead the Commonwealth.
Well, and you make a good point, because there's a new Sears ad, or there's a Sears ad out about the border, and it features one quote about Biden saying, "Abigail's my friend," right? So they're obviously trying to tie her to Biden. The difference is he's not an incumbent. And will he be in the rearview mirror by November compared to Trump? That's
front and center.
Remains to be seen.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's talk about referendum. That word love, we love to throw that word around when we talk about elections and what it says, not just about Trump, but also the state of the parties at the time. Or is it a bellwether? Is what we see happen in Virginia, does that really show what the rest of the country is thinking right now? Doctor, do you think that what we're going to see in Virginia is going to be indicative of a much larger feel or momentum politically?
Absolutely. I think that Virginia is going to emphatically show that the nation and people as a whole are not pleased with the current administration in the White House, and it's going to trickle down. I mean, if you look at the state houses here in Virginia, Governor Youngkin hasn't been able to deliver a Senate or a House since he's been in. He's flipped very few seats. He's not necessarily been able to do the things in which he said he was going to do. And then you add that on top of a current president who's polling at some of the lowest rates of any president during this early in their administration. I think that Virginia is going to show that, again, they too agree with the rest of the nation and that they're looking for something different.
All right, 30 seconds. Is this going to kind of be our crystal ball?
If Sears wins, I think it's indicative that there's something going on here with the Republican Party and they're doing something right. With Spanberger, if she wins, you got to look at the margin of victory. If it's tight, I think it'll show you that maybe there's some resilience with Republicans and with Trump. If it's a blowout, Republicans probably need to be a little bit worried.
Yesli.
Historically, the Commonwealth of Virginia has gone in the opposite direction of who's in the White House. So I do understand the challenges that we face, but I do believe that the Lieutenant Governor is prepared to bring the fight and that she's ready to engage the voters across the Commonwealth and deliver her message.
Well, that is all the time we have for tonight. Thank you for joining us as well. Thanks to our panel. Great conversation. The November election is set. Early voting begins in September. You can find all the information you need on WJLA.com and inside our free mobile app. Thank you for being here tonight. Have a good evening.